Hey everybody, welcome back to A Song Between. Today we're talking about, will the coronavirus weaken or destroy the church? Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, welcome back. This is A Song Between. I'm Pastor Gray Ewing of New Valley Downtown in Phoenix, Arizona. Thank you for joining us today. We're going through the Psalms as a way to encourage our hearts and stay on the same page while we can't gather in worship together. So thanks for joining us today. Today we are looking at a beautiful and heartbreaking psalm, Psalm 137. And so I'm going to read this psalm for us. Would you take just a minute before we do that to quiet your heart, prepare yourself, and then we will hear from the Lord. Psalm 137. By the waters of Babylon, there we sat down and wept. When we remembered Zion, on the willows there we hung our lyres. For there our captors required of us songs, and our tormentors mirth, saying, "Sing us one of your songs of Zion." How shall we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget its skill. Let my tongue stick to the roof of my mouth, if I do not remember you, if I do not set Jerusalem above my highest joy. As I've said, Psalm 137 is beautiful and it's heartbreaking at the same time. The opening lines picture for us the Israelites as they sit by the waters of Babylon, and what are they doing? They're crying, they're weeping, they're hanging up their musical instruments on the trees, being done with their songs. What's the historical background here? Israel went into exile, into Babylon. This was part of God's judgment on them, and the thing that he warned them would happen and did happen. The Babylonians came in and they sacked Jerusalem and they destroyed the temple and they brought the people of God to Babylon. For 70 years, an entire generation of the Israelites lived in this place that wasn't their home. This psalm is capturing the heartbreak of what it is to be in exile. I mean, can you think of a better, more appropriate psalm for us to sing right now than this? To be away from our home, to be away from the place of worship that is the church. I want to ask the question today, will the coronavirus weaken or destroy the church? Because the assumption is here that there are some detractors who are saying to the Israelites, your time is over. Listen to how they taunt them. Sing us one of your songs of Zion, these people say. Our captors, they're requiring songs of us. They're making fun of them as they sit at the waters of Babylon. These captors are saying, yeah, tell us about how it was like in that place where you will never be again. And so they're taunting them. There's plenty of detractors in our world right now too. Plenty of people saying negative things about the church. Some of them are coming, unfortunately, from pastors and leaders in the Christian world themselves who are wringing their hands and they're saying things like, this is going to destroy evangelicalism as we know it, this virus. Think about all the people who are used to going to church and now they're not going to come to church anymore. And so they wring their hands over this. Others are coming from outside the church and they're saying things like, well, now everybody will wake up to the sham that is religion. And just like companies are going to have to restructure their workforces as we trickle back into society, maybe some companies realize that they need to let some employees go. Maybe they need to realize that they don't need these buildings anymore. People can just work from home. There's going to be a great restructuring. And so the detractors say, so it will be with religion. People will realize that they don't need this as much as they thought they did. They can kind of exist on their own. What do we say to that? Well, when we look at the story of Scripture, we see that God restores his people and he gives them a hope of their future and final home, the real Jerusalem. It is true that the people of God can exist outside of that place called Jerusalem. that place that represented the presence of God to them. It was gone. For 70 years, they had to live without it. And we're having to live without it right now. We aren't able to go to that place called the church. And yet, we don't believe that God's people were destroyed. They weren't. They grew in number. They expanded over the whole globe. Every nation, tribe, and tongue is proclaiming the name of Christ, or will proclaim the name of Christ, we're told in the scriptures. And so, Jerusalem wasn't just a place to get back to, and the church is not just a place to get back to. It is the reality of what we believe about the world. So how do we be faithful right now? The psalmist tells us over and over again in this psalm to remember. Remember. 3 times he says, remember Zion, remember Jerusalem, remember that your true place is with the presence of God, wherever that may be found. Jesus tells us that there's coming a time when we'll worship in spirit and in truth. It's not necessarily on Mount Zion, on that physical place. And yet there will always be the metaphorical Mount Zion, the presence of God. It's funny even to think about when we come back to normal church. I'm assuming that will happen on some level. We'll come back and we'll have a worship service again, and maybe some things will have changed, but many will stay the same. We'll still be able to sing Psalm 137 because even now, if this place were normal, it wouldn't be our home. Our home is with the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, the presence of God. When we remember that our true place is in God's presence, then we won't be destroyed by a situation, by an exile, by a virus. We will long for and remember the true Jerusalem, which is with God Himself.